Before your muscles ever quit, your thoughts whisper 1,000 quiet retreats. It tells you to hit snooze, to swallow your truth, to shrink back when destiny demands you rise. This voice never screams. It suggests subtle surrenders, and with each one, day by day, it pulls a thread from the fabric of your character until you finally look in the mirror and see a ghost where a titan should stand. But the Stoics knew a secret, the one the world never teaches you. Your fragility is not the enemy. It is the foundation. It is the unchiseled stone waiting for your disciplined hand to carve a monument. When you cease fleeing from it, when you stand still and meet its gaze without blinking, the entire universe begins to pivot. The locks on your cage start to rattle. The floor feels solid under your feet once more, and a forgotten memory of who you were stirs to life. Marcus Aurelius, who held more power than most can imagine, confessed to his private diary, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting." A man who could command armies with a word understood the ultimate war was never outside. It was within. The final victory was self-mastery. So we're not here for fleeting inspiration, not the kind that evaporates when the video ends. We are here for something far more substantial. 7 Stoic principles that will not soothe you, but will dismantle your justifications like a hammer to glass. Rules that don't just motivate, they reconstruct. These are not relics from forgotten pages. They are living. They have transformed the aimless into the purposeful, the fearful into the courageous. They have seen civilizations crumble and still stand, because they speak to something timeless in the human soul. And this you must know. The authentic self, buried under layers of doubt, convenience, and apology, has not vanished. It may be dormant, it may be muffled, but it is not dead. These 7 codes, they are the keys, the compass pointing home. But before we walk this path, it requires something of you, not your money, not your connections, but your raw candor, the kind of severe, unflinching honesty that people flee from their entire lives. You cannot resurrect what you refuse to acknowledge has fallen. For the Stoics, philosophy was not a theory, it was a practice. So as we move through these 7 laws, do not simply hear them. Let them permeate your marrow. Let them dismantle what must fall and forge what must ascend. Now write this in the comments. My strength is my choice. Number 1, the principle of chosen hardship. Seek the difficult before it is forced upon you. I will tell you a truth that sounds inverted until you live it. A life of ease is the most perilous life. Not because pleasure is wrong, but because it makes you pliable in a reality that requires resilience. It makes you brittle in a cosmos of constant change. Seneca, who counseled kings, engaged in a radical ritual. Periodically he would sleep on the ground, consume simple meals, wear coarse fabric. Here was a man of vast fortune choosing austerity, a man surrounded by luxury voluntarily selecting lack. Why? Because he grasped a truth most learn in tragedy. If you know only softness, the first storm will shatter you. This principle teaches you to select your struggle, because struggle is inevitable. The only question is, will you greet it trained or terrified? Examine your routine. How often do you pick the smooth road? The agreeable silence over the crucial dialogue, the cozy habit over the path that challenges you. Every time you select comfort over evolution, you aren't preserving yourself. You are diminishing yourself. You are rehearsing frailty. Your biology is built for stress. When you strain your body, you create micro tears. The ache, the fatigue, that isn't injury, it is metamorphosis. Your physique rebuilds mightier because you challenged it. The identical law governs your will, your integrity, your essence. Pressure forges fortitude. Ease forges fragility. But do not mistake this. Chosen hardship is not self-flagellation. It is not pain for pain's sake. It is a vaccine. It is readying your spirit for adversity. So when life strikes, and it will strike, you won't be stunned into inaction. You will be poised. You will be resilient. You will be steadfast. Begin modestly. Take a cold shower, not because warmth is bad, but because selecting cold when warmth is available fortifies your will. It demonstrates you can override your instincts, that you are not a servant to pleasure, that you can elect hardship in pursuit of power. Fast briefly, skip a meal, feel the emptiness, not to hurt yourself, but to remember you are not as delicate as your appetites claim. You can operate, reason, produce, even when your body clamors for satisfaction. This is mental durability that transfers to every arena. Train when you lack the desire, especially then, because the days you least want to act are the days that define you most. That is when you prove emotions are not your commander. That inspiration is a bonus. That resolve is fundamental. And yes, initiate the tough discussions, the ones you postpone, the ones that twist your gut. Evading hard realities doesn't erase them. It only lets them fester until they become beasts. Chosen hardship means confronting the bitter truth now to avoid the catastrophic lie later. Epictetus, who began life in chains, taught we should routinely meditate on loss. Imagine life without what you hold dear, not to torture yourself, but to temper your spirit, to value what you possess, while steeling yourself for the fact that nothing is permanent. That type of emotional rigor makes you simultaneously grateful and unassailably strong. But here is the grand deception of our age, that life's aim is maximal comfort. That triumph means removing all effort. That joy springs from simplicity. Observe. The most discontented souls are often the most cushioned. Why? Because comfort cultivates weakness, and weakness cultivates dread. When you know you are soft, every test seems monstrous. But when you practice chosen hardship, a miracle occurs. Trials cease to be threats. They become invitations. Hardships become examinations. You are sure you will pass because you have been drilling. You have been preparing. You have been selecting rigor while others selected ease. This principle doesn't render you callous. It renders you competent. It renders you reliable. The person others seek when systems fail because they know you will not fracture. You have been flexing yourself deliberately so existence cannot break you accidentally. Your task this week: select one arena of chosen hardship, just one. Rise before dawn. Speak that difficult truth. Tackle the project you've sidelined. Choose your struggle. Welcome it. Let it reshape you. Because frailty perishes in hardship, and potency is born there too. Number 2, the principle of the interpretive command. The conflict is in your perception, not in the world. Reality isn't targeting you, it is simply unfolding, and that single alteration in understanding transforms everything. Marcus Aurelius inscribed words that should be etched into every consciousness. You are harmed only by the view you take of the harm. Revisit that slowly. Let it sink into the places where you've blamed conditions for your anguish. This principle of interpretive command is possibly the most emancipating and demanding Stoic skill to learn. It states that between any event and your reaction exists a gap, a pause, and within that pause resides your authority, your liberty, your entire existence. Most exist as captives of their instant reflexes. An event occurs, they react. A person speaks, they retort. A barrier emerges, they collapse. There is no space, no breath, only a cascade of feelings they mistake for living. But you are not a falling tile. You are a human with the sovereign capacity of interpretation. You can choose what events signify. You can decide how to frame circumstances. You can command the only thing that ever truly matters, your interior realm. Now, be clear on what this is not. This is not false optimism. This is not pretending darkness is light. This is not convincing yourself suffering is imaginary. The Stoics were realists. They endured epidemics, conflict, treachery, mortality. They knew pain intimately, but they also knew this profound truth. Pain is unavoidable, but torment is a choice. A setback occurs, a disappointment arrives, a rejection lands. That is pain, that is fact. But torment is the tale you spin about the pain, the significance you attach, the doom-filled story you author. Someone critiques your creation. That is data, one statement. But your psyche, it writes an epic. They believe I'm incapable, I'll never make it. Everyone views me as insignificant. The critique was data. Your torment is the narrative you constructed around it. Interpretive command means intercepting that process, halting the story mid-sentence and inquiring, is this the sole way to perceive this? Perhaps the critique holds a useful lesson. Perhaps the person is projecting their own hurt. Perhaps they are correct on one point but mistaken on the rest. Perhaps this is the precise catalyst you required to evolve. The event is unchanged, but your relationship to it is transformed. And in that shift, the torment dissolves, not because you deceived yourself, but because you liberated yourself from your own destructive fiction. Traffic delays you. You cannot control the gridlock. You cannot control the clock, but you can control whether you sit there in fury or in calm, whether you arrive unraveled or composed. The traffic is identical, but your experience is wholly different. Epictetus instructed his students, someone belittled you. That is their action, their character. What is yours? Your, reply. He wanted them to see that most of what we believe governs us only possesses the power we grant it. Here is your practice. Begin treating your thoughts like passing weather. They drift through the atmosphere of your awareness. You observe them, but you do not board them. A thought surfaces. I am inadequate. There it is, a cloud. You need not claim it. You need not fashion it into identity. It is merely atmospheric. This requires repetition because your brain is wired for threat detection. It imagines worst cases that aided your ancestors against predators. But today it inundates you with panic over a text message. Your brain treats pixels on a screen like a threat in the shadows. Interpretive command means retraining your mind. When anxiety surges, halt. Ask, am I in genuine physical peril right now? Or am I constructing catastrophes in my imagination? Almost invariably, it is the latter. You are secure in this moment. You are breathing. The disaster is hypothetical. The anxiety, optional. The Stoics employed a technique called the cosmic view. When overwhelmed, they zoomed out. Visualize yourself from above, your street, your nation, the spinning planet. In that vast perspective, how immense is this problem truly? Not belittled, but properly sized. Most torment springs from resisting what is. Life delivered something you didn't order, and you quarrel with reality as if your protest could alter the past. But reality is undefeated. It wins every debate. The Stoics met this with amor fati, the love of fate. Not resignation, not passivity, but a fierce embrace of what is. Because that is where true power resides. You cannot change what has occurred, but you can always change what you do next. Here is what happens when you master interpretive command. Life ceases happening to you. You cease being a casualty. You become the author. Two individuals can inhabit the same day yet live distinct lives. Not because events differ, but because perception does. One sees barriers, another sees gateways. One sees betrayal, another sees clarity revealed. One sees failure, another sees instruction. Identical events, different minds, different lives. Your mind is the arena where frailty expires or endures. Not your situation, not the world, your mind. So wage the correct war. Cease trying to command the world. Begin commanding your perspective. Cease demanding life to transform. Begin transforming how you interpret life as it exists. That is where strength is forged. Not from controlling circumstances, but from mastering your reply. That is immovable. That is freedom. That is authority. Write this in the comments. I command my mind, therefore I command my life. Number 3, the principle of premeditated loss. Prepare for absence to fully cherish presence. Here is a reality most sprint from. Everything you adore will conclude. Everyone you treasure will depart through distance, evolution, or death. Every item you own will fracture, fade, or be lost. Every instant will slip into memory, and even memories will dissolve with time. Many hear this and recoil. They label it grim, but the Stoics, they labeled it insight. They called it premeditatio malorum, the pre-consideration of hardships, and they held it as one of the most potent instruments for living completely. This principle isn't about gloom. It's not about walking through existence in dread. It's about preparation and appreciation, working in concert. It's about fortifying yourself for loss while intensifying your thankfulness for what remains. Seneca lived this discipline. Before voyages, he would envision storms and theft. At night, he would picture calamity arriving by sunrise. Not because he was fearful, but because he was awake, because he desired to be prepared if fortune turned harsh, and profoundly grateful when it did not. Here is what occurs when you neglect this. You live in presumption. You presume your vitality will last. Your family will always be present. Your love will always stay. Your chances will wait for you. But presumption makes you vulnerable. When loss finally arrives, and it always arrives, it strikes like a tempest you never saw forming. And presumption does something worse. It murders gratitude. What you presume will last forever, you stop truly seeing. Your partner becomes part of the scenery. Your health becomes static. Your gifts become invisible. Premeditated loss shatters that blindness. It reminds you nothing is promised. And in that reminder, you finally see. You see the worth of every glance, every inhalation, every opening. Right now, envision this. Today is the final day you will see someone you cherish. What would you express? How would you behold them? How intently would you listen? Now realize it could be. Any day could be. That isn't morbid, that is fact. And fact is the only soil where love genuinely grows. Marcus Aurelius would visualize his own end, his final sunrise, his final breath, not to spiral into sorrow, but to sharpen his intent, to ask himself, if this were my last day, what carries weight? And then to live as if the answer mattered. Most avoid death because they believe it's too sorrowful. But avoiding death makes you squander life. Contemplating death makes you prize it. When you know something concludes, you cherish it. You live it fiercely. You stop deferring joy. You stop reserving love for a future that may never arrive. Your greatest strength is built by staring, unflinching, at your greatest fears. Here is your practice. Once each week, sit in stillness. Visualize losing something you prize, your well-being, your sanctuary, your people, your craft. Feel the gravity of that loss as if it were already fact. Then open your eyes and recognize it is still here, still yours, still breathing. That realization should flood you with gratefulness. And when loss eventually comes, you will not be demolished. You will, yes, but you will stand. You will continue because you have already rehearsed it. You have already prepared. This principle kills weakness by killing presumption. Weakness believes life is permanent. Strength knows it is fragile. Weakness is shocked by loss. Strength is ready. Weakness takes things for granted. Strength savors every second. And here is the paradox. Thinking about loss doesn't drain your delight. It amplifies it, because when you accept impermanence, you cease sleepwalking through existence. You live in the fierce beauty of the now. Number 4, the principle of inner authority. You are the origin, not the consequence. There arrives a juncture in every journey, a silent fork where you must choose. Will I be a leaf carried by any breeze, or will I be the wind itself carving the path ahead? This decision dictates all that follows. The principle of inner authority is simple, yet severe. It states you are not the effect of the world. You are the cause of your experience. Epictetus, a man who knew both bondage and liberty, taught, happiness and freedom begin with one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. He divided existence into 2 domains, what lies within your command and what lies beyond it. And he declared, tranquility belongs solely to those who comprehend the distinction. But here is where most falter. They expend 90% of their vigor on what they cannot alter. The climate, history, others' judgments, markets, politics, congestion. They wrestle phantoms and then wonder why they feel impotent. You cannot control what others think of you, but you can control your integrity. You cannot control results, but you can control your endeavor. You cannot control chances appearing, but you can control your readiness for them. You cannot control another's affection, but you can control being deserving of love. Weakness always gestures outward. I'm trapped because of them. I fell short because of that. I am unhappy because of this. Strength gestures inward. What is my next move? What rests within my grasp? What action can I take in this very moment? Inspect your own life. The arenas where you feel most powerless, most irritated, most stagnant. Likely you are fixated on what you cannot command. You desire someone to change. You desire life to conform to your expectations, and you suffer because reality will never bow to your demands. But shift the inquiry. Stop asking, why won't they change? Start asking, what can I do here? And suddenly pathways unlock. Possibilities materialize. Power returns. Someone treats you poorly. You cannot command their choices, but you can command your boundaries. You can command your response. You can depart. That is authority. Your work feels hollow. You cannot rebuild the organization today, but you can hone your abilities. You can seek something better. You can decide how to use your unscheduled hours. That isn't helplessness. That is strategy. The instant you cease waiting for the world to move and begin moving yourself, you cease being a casualty. You become an agent. And here is the paradox. When you command yourself, the world often shifts as well. People react differently when you present yourself differently. Opportunities emerge when you prepare for them, not because you coerced the world, but because you mastered the one thing you truly govern. But first, you must relinquish the fantasy of control. The fantasy that you can mold people into your desired image, that you can dictate outcomes by worry, that existence will bend to your expectations. These illusions feel comforting, but they are cages. Real power is raw, direct, irrefutable. Accept wholly what you cannot change. Take absolute responsibility for what you can. You did not choose your beginning, but you can choose what you build from it. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you can choose whether it imprisons you or instructs you. You cannot prevent every trial, but you can choose whether trial breaks you or builds you. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire engulfed in war, disease, and deceit. He couldn't command any of it, but he could command Marcus, his reflections, his decisions, his virtue. And because of that, he became a beacon in the gloom. What of you? Where are you bleeding energy into wars you cannot win? Where are you pointing outward instead of inward? Here is your practice. For 1 week, listen to the phrase you utter most. I can't because Every time you hear yourself say it, stop. Reframe it. I haven't discovered how yet, but what can I command? Because even in the darkest confinement, choice persists. Even in chains, dignity persists. Even in defeat, response persists. Viktor Frankl, who survived the camps, demonstrated this truth. He could not command the guards, the starvation, the brutality, but he could command his inner world, his meaning, his humanity. And by mastering that, he carried illumination into history's deepest night. The world will always be flawed. People will always disappoint. Circumstances will always surprise. But you are the constant. And if you master yourself, you will never be powerless again. Write this in the comments. I focus on what I can command and release what I cannot. Number 5, the principle of mortality's reminder. Recall your end so you truly live while you draw breath. Every heartbeat you experience is borrowed. Every dawn you witness is a gift countless others never received. And every minute you squander is a fragment of your finite existence you will never reclaim. This isn't designed to frighten you. It's designed to rouse you. Memento mori. Remember, you must die. The Stoics didn't murmur this phrase in secret. They wore it openly. They engraved it on jewelry. They repeated it at feasts. They dwelled with it daily, not because they were fixated on death, but because they knew this truth. Most people pass their lives evading death, yet it is death that gives life its significance. Ponder your days. How much time do you lose to diversion? How many hours sink into bitterness, anxiety, or hollow pursuits? How often do you postpone joy until tomorrow, delay your visions, or avoid meaningful exchanges because you assume you have time? You do not have time. None of us do. You have this instant, perhaps another, perhaps 1,000 more, perhaps none. The Stoics knew this intimately. Plague could claim them tomorrow. Conflict could end them today. They lacked the luxury of pretending death was distant. But we possess that luxury. We hide it in institutions. We soften it with gentle words. We scroll past it and persuade ourselves it belongs to another. But here is the cost of that denial. When you forget you will die, you forget to live. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could depart life now. Let that dictate what you do, say, and think." Imagine filtering every choice through that lens. Would you spend hours scrolling? Would you clutch that resentment? Would you waste today dreading tomorrow? Death isn't a puzzle to solve. It's a fact to embrace. And when you embrace it, you don't become somber. You become vibrant. When mortality is real to you, the trivial evaporates. Office disputes shrink. Status contests become empty. Petty quarrels dissolve. What remains is what counts. Connection, evolution, contribution, love, creation, meaning. Seneca cultivated this awareness for years. He wanted death to discover him living, not hiding. And when it finally arrived, when Nero commanded his death, Seneca met it with composure. He had rehearsed. He had lived fully. Death held no terror. Most live the opposite. They dread death while wasting life. They fear the conclusion while refusing to embrace the present. That is the ultimate tragedy. So here is your practice. Once daily, face your end. Not abstractly, concretely. Picture the moment. Who will be there? What will you lament? What will you wish you had done? Then ask, if tomorrow were my final day, am I living correctly today? If the answer is no, then you are living incorrectly. Memento mori doesn't make you rash. It makes you deliberate. It makes you ruthless about what matters. It makes you brave, because cowardice is senseless when your time is short. Desire to launch that vision? Launch now. Desire to mend that bond? Mend today. Desire to craft something meaningful? Craft this moment, because the clock is already ticking and it doesn't pause for hesitation. The Stoics asked each morning, If this were my last day, how would I wish to spend it? Not in panic, but in purpose. And when they lived like that, fear dissolved, anxiety faded, because anxiety dwells in the future. Death awareness pulls you into the now. Confronting illness, a visionary once said, keeping death in mind is the ultimate tool for making life's grand choices. Because nearly everything, pride, fear of failure, external expectations, falls away before death, leaving only what is truly essential. So I ask you, what is truly essential to you? Not what culture demands, not what your lineage expected, not what peers think, what matters to you. Memento mori doesn't depress you. It makes you urgent in the finest way. Urgent to love profoundly, to create boldly, to live completely, because the clock is ticking and you know it. You possess one life, this one occurring right now. Every second that passes is gone forever. Every day deferred is erased from your total. The arithmetic is severe and simple. You are dying. You always have been. The sole question is, will you live first? Cease waiting. Cease postponing. Cease building regrets for your final hour. Live like someone who knows the truth. This concludes. Therefore, this is significant. Therefore, now is significant. Therefore, you are significant. Write this affirmation in the comments. I remember my end to honor my existence. Number 6, the principle of inner wholeness. Your serenity cannot rely on external affirmation. There exists a hunger inside most, not for sustenance, but for approval, for recognition, for validation. They walk through existence holding an invisible bowl, hoping someone will fill it. A morsel of praise, a drop of affection, a hint of acknowledgement that they count. But here is the tragedy. That bowl has no bottom, and they spend their entire lives thirsty. The principle of inner wholeness teaches something radical, something liberating. Your value is not determined by committee. Your peace cannot depend on another's endorsement. Your joy cannot be chained to conditions you cannot command. You must become complete within yourself, not through arrogance, but through profound self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Epictetus stated, "Liberty is the premier aim in life. It is achieved by disregarding what lies beyond our control. And what lies more beyond your control than the opinions of others? You can be exemplary and still be condemned. You can be compassionate and still be misread. You can offer your utmost and still be refused. If your serenity hinges on applause, you have handed your soul to forces you will never govern. Observe how much energy you expend attempting to manage perceptions, the carefully curated posts, the nervousness before revealing your work, the devastation when someone disapproves. You are permitting strangers to dictate your calm. You are allowing phantoms to become your jailers. Here is the truth that frees you. Most people aren't contemplating you at all. They are too preoccupied worrying about themselves. The spotlight you believe is on you, it isn't. You are performing for an audience that isn't watching, and even when they are watching, their views are about them, not you, their injuries, their lenses, their principles. Criticism is information about them, not a final judgment on you. Praise is identical. The Stoics knew this, which is why they navigated by an internal compass. They measured themselves not by ovation, but by virtue. Marcus Aurelius never inquired, "Did they approve of me today?" He inquired, "Was I fair? Was I benevolent? Did I fulfill my duty?" That shift alters everything. When affirmation originates within, you cannot be shaken. Success doesn't inflate you. Failure doesn't demolish you. You remain anchored, stable, free. But inner wholeness runs deeper than ignoring opinions. It also means not requiring perfect conditions to be at peace. Most live with a checklist. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be serene when I find a partner. I'll be confident when I lose the weight. I'll be satisfied when I achieve that goal. but conditions shift. Circumstances fail, which means their happiness fails with them. The Stoic declares, "I can be at peace regardless. I can find joy in simplicity. I can be whole within myself." Seneca lost riches, lost standing, faced banishment. And in exile, he authored some of his most profound work because his contentment wasn't constructed on fortune. It was constructed on philosophy, on virtue, on what could never be stolen. Here is your practice. Spend one day pursuing zero external affirmation. Don't check metrics, don't fish for compliments, don't over-explain, don't seek applause. Simply do what you know is correct. And notice how uneasy it feels. That unease reveals where you are still shackled. Notice how often you betray your truth for approval, how often you silence your voice to evade judgment, how often you perform instead of simply being. That is the cage you forge for yourself. Inner wholeness shatters the cage. It doesn't render you cold. It doesn't render you remote. It renders you free, because then you can love without clinging. You can share without begging. You can care without being enslaved. Two incomplete halves seeking completion will only wound each other deeper. But two whole beings, inwardly whole, strong within themselves, can build something unassailable. And here is the paradox. The moment you cease chasing validation, it begins to find you. Because people are drawn to those who don't need endorsement, to those who stand firm in themselves. The world will always fluctuate. People will always let you down. Conditions will always vary. But if your peace is built on inner wholeness, on virtue, on character, on interior stability, then no tempest can move you. The winds howl, the world trembles, but your center holds. And that is genuine liberty. Number 7, the principle of intentional motion. Act with purpose or rest with intention. There is a feverishness in contemporary existence. People moving constantly but advancing nowhere. Occupied but not effective. Active but not purposeful. They confuse motion for advancement, activity for meaning. They are sprinting on a treadmill, exhausting themselves yet remaining stationary. The principle of intentional motion states this: every action should serve an aim aligned with your values, or you should repose. No middle ground, no thoughtless motion, no activity for activity's sake. Either advance with design or be still with tranquility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not correct, refuse to do it. If it is not truthful, refuse to say it." Simple, clear, every action filtered through two inquiries. Is this right? Is this necessary? If the answer is no, why are you doing it? Most fill their lives with meaningless motions, scrolling for hours, conversing about irrelevant people, agreeing when they mean dissent. Staying busy to avoid feeling, moving to escape reflection. They dread stillness because stillness forces a confrontation with themselves. But the Stoics embraced both intentional action and intentional rest. When they acted completely. When they rested without remorse. Energy is finite. Attention is limited. A life of mindless motion is a life wasted. Examine your daily deeds. How many align with your principles? How many steps do you take toward the person you aspire to become? And how many are merely filler, noise disguised as productivity, motion pretending to be progress? The question isn't, am I busy? The question is this meaningful? You can occupy every hour and still feel vacant. Intentional motion requires clarity. Clarity about what truly matters to you. Seneca cautioned, "People guard their property but squander their days. Why are you so negligent with the one resource you can never recover?" Every moment spent on aimless motion is a moment stolen from meaningful action. Here is your practice. For 1 week before undertaking anything, pause and ask, why am I doing this? What purpose does this serve? Does this align with my values? If the answer isn't evident, refrain. This will be uncomfortable. You will see how much of your life is avoidance, distraction, habit without thought, performance without purpose. But that discomfort is the ache of awakening, and awakening is always uncomfortable. But it surpasses sleepwalking through existence. Intentional motion also means declining frequently, declining chances that drain you, requests that waste your energy, distractions that pull you from what counts. Every yes to purposeless things is a no to meaningful things. The Stoics were masters of subtraction. They concentrated on what mattered and ruthlessly eliminated all else. Marcus Aurelius administered an empire, yet still found moments for philosophy, writing, contemplation, not because he possessed more time than you, but because he was deliberate with it. Rest isn't indolence. Rest is preparation, recovery, regeneration. You need not be productive every second. You need not monetize every interest. You need not optimize every hour. You can repose. You can be still. You can do nothing and do it intentionally. Intentional motion means when you labor fully. When you rest fully. When you are with someone, you are fully present. When you are alone, you are fully solitary. No half measures, no divided focus, no pretense. This deliberateness transforms everything. Work becomes potent, rest becomes restorative. Relationships deepen, solitude becomes significant. Epictetus taught, every deed is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every choice is a declaration of your values. There is no neutral. You are always progressing in a direction. The question is, are you selecting it or is it selecting you? When you master intentional motion, you cease being busy and start being potent. You cease exhausting yourself on meaningless activity and invest yourself in meaningful progress. You are no longer performing 1,000 tasks poorly. You are performing the correct tasks masterfully. You are no longer deluded. You are concentrated on what matters. And concentration generates results, generates meaning, generates a life worth living. So here we stand. 7 principles, 7 codes that have survived dynasties, outlived monarchs, and continue to transform lives across millennia. Not because they are simple, but because they are true. Not because they pledge comfort, but because they deliver power. If you remained present, if you did not skip, something within you was prepared. Prepared to cease being fragile. Prepared to cease crafting excuses. Prepared to encounter the person you are capable of becoming. These aren't merely concepts to admire. They are instruments to employ. The principle of chosen hardship teaches you to select your struggle. The principle of interpretive command reveals your mind as the battleground. The principle of premeditated loss instills gratitude and readiness. The principle of inner authority returns power to your hands. The principle of mortality's reminder imparts urgency to life. The principle of inner wholeness liberates you from needing approval. The principle of intentional motion ensures every moment constructs the existence you desire. But here is what matters now. What will you do with this? Knowledge without application is merely entertainment. Understanding without action is merely comfort. The robust version of you, the capable version, the version that can withstand whatever life delivers, is forged through practice, through daily decisions, through selecting difficulty over ease, through commanding your mind, through cherishing what you possess, through concentrating on what you can command, through living as if time is limited, through moving with intent. Begin modestly, select one principle, master it, then proceed to the next. The Stoics didn't merely teach philosophy, they lived it through wars, plagues, betrayals, triumphs, losses. It sustained them. It gave them fortitude when all else failed. It can do the same. For you, your fragility isn't permanent, it's a habit. Habits can be broken. Your strength isn't absent, it's submerged. And what's submerged can be unearthed. These 7 principles are your tools. Use them, practice them, permit them to remake you. The Stoics believed the finest reply to fragility was becoming strong. The finest answer to hardship was becoming capable. The finest response to suffering was becoming resilient, and so will you. Starting now, starting today, you are not a victim of conditions. You are not a prisoner of your history. You are not defined by your current fragility. You are a work in progress, and the work continues every day, every choice, until fragility perishes and strength remains. Welcome to the authentic you. The voyage begins now. If this resonated, show the algorithm this is the kind of content you value. Hit like and subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery for more.